How many times have you logged in after a good night's sleep to a raided base? Over the course of the night, the rats get to work raiding down the door of every neighbor. With dreams of doing oil rig the next day, most players instead log in to find everything gone. So how do you prevent that from being you? Well, you can either farm all day and night and build a super big compound and risk the attention of the clans, or you can build a compact base, a base not worth raiding. After all, how much loot can you fit inside of a 2x2? However, small groups and even solos tend to raid everything. Thinking it's an easy task, they'd calculate the raid costs and gather their farm. But no matter how many doors they blow up, they won't find your TC or loot, because today, we're building underground. In order to build a base underground, we need to find a nice dip in the terrain. That is a spot that goes very, very low. We're gonna want enough room when we place our first foundation to basically only place a TC. Once you find a spot and you're pretty comfortable with how low you've gone, you just want to make sure that you can place raised foundations around it. After that, you'd want to look and make sure that you could roughly place another raised foundation outside of that area, so it's almost beneficial if these raised foundations partially clip into the ground. Next, we're going to place 2 square foundations here, and off of this second square, we're going to create a pixel gap. To do that, we're going to build out 5 or 7 triangles. Going 7 triangles is going to make a slightly wider gap and make it a lot easier to see and access. Next, if you've got your TC placed, you can destroy these very easily. If not, use a tool or a crossbow. Then building back off of here, we're going to make sure to only connect to the foundations that were away from us. The height doesn't matter too much as long as we build back to our original height. It's at this point you want to make sure that you connect to this foundation specifically. While looking at it, we can go ahead and place that. And if you're not sure if you've placed it correctly, you can always place 2 temporary half walls and check to make sure they're gapped in between them. If that's done, we can go ahead and place our final raised foundation, connecting it to the piece in front of me. And then we can place raised triangles all around the base except for to this side of this low square. Here's the only lowered triangle. Everything else should be raised. If the terrain is not favorable, you can absolutely alternate which one it's going to be. It's just going to be dependent, and it might make you a little more exposed depending on where you put it. From this point, however, you do want to make sure you have that half wall there, and so I would probably put both half walls anyway. Next, coming in here, we're going to want to start closing things off. To do that, first we're going to connect to this side, which is going to require that we place this half wall here. I always forget about that. Alternatively, you can also place one right here and connect it to those two. And these two are important that they connect together, the same way that these two here are going to be important that they connect together. To do this effectively, we're going to need to place this in between, place these two, and then drop back down in. From down here, we're now going to need to separate these 2 spots, and the gap is here, right? Yeah. So then we're going to break this, and it should remain stable. Now you can go ahead and upgrade these, and you should see your gaps. Next, go ahead and upgrade all of your foundations. Decide if you want to be locked in or out for now, because we need to get this final TC placed. I do recommend locking yourself in before dealing with anything else, as you can always get yourself out later as long as you get a box down in here as well. Now once you get to this point, you're going to need to get your bag and your TC down. I do recommend placing your bag first so that you're going to be able to make sure that you have enough room for your TC. Once your bag's placed, look for enough room down here to place. Oh, there we go. So we are going to have to place the TC in this corner here, which isn't ideal for me, but it's also not a deal breaker. And then for this back corner here, we're going to want a storage box, placing it very tight into the corner, We'll place another one right here. And then this box here actually has to overlap the gap. That's because this box is going to be lootable from down or, well, from up there. We're also going to do the same over here, placing one right here. But first, we're going to need to do the mirrored version of this corner. It can help to ghost through the walls a little bit to make sure that it's lined up straight. And that's just going to give us the most of the storage out of that spot. You can also put another small box here. It does get a little bit annoying trying to loot that, so I do recommend keeping your movement path relatively clear. This does mean you can also put a box right here, so that's not going to matter too much. And this is going to give you a lot of hidden underground storage. Next, we do got to worry about the rest of the base, that is the above ground. I do recommend covering this up and using a floor tile, and then we can actually use this as our entrance. The reason we do it this way is it actually makes it a lot harder for someone to soft side into this base. That is because if you haven't figured it out right now, the biggest weakness to this base is these foundations. While they can be raided, most people don't really raid foundations anymore, instead operating through your roof or your walls or doors, with smaller groups tending to go for doors. Now because of that, you do have to worry about eco raids. However, one way that we fix that in this base design in particular is by covering through all of the honeycomb. Yes, that is going to get rid of a lot of useful space underneath, but it is going to make it a lot harder for a raider to move through your base. That's because this is going to be hard side and would require actually raiding through, or they have to soft side through a wall and then the foundations. That said, if we make this area up here look somewhat noobish, most players are just going to think you're a noob, don't have that much loot, and will end up giving up in the raid. That said, if they do move all the way through, they'll have underestimated the actual true raid cost of this base and won't get any of the loot. If you are having trouble getting your loot up and down, turning a crosshair on can make things a lot easier. Obviously, remember which side you put your boxes on, but having that crosshair on can allow you to get to those boxes very easily. One thing worth pointing out is that adding double doors to this space will actually cover the gap, and since single doors aren't an option at all, this isn't exactly ideal to have to pick up your doors every time. That said, it does mean that raiders would be a little more confused as they wouldn't think anything's there. But we can fix this problem entirely by using garage doors. With garage doors, there is nothing across the bottom, and you'll still be able to access the gap. Of course, realistically, you could build anything above this base, opting for more security, more storage, or just focusing on a more confusing raid. No matter how you decide to decorate the top portion, living on top of an underground vault will mean that you'll have access to the loot and no one else. Is there a specific type of base that you would like to see me build, or a concept that I haven't already covered? Write in the comments and let me know. If you guys like this video, if you like this base design, be sure to click that like button and subscribe for future content. Until next time, enjoy your wipe and peace out.